That's what you proposed. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order of council January 28th, 2025, the Municipal Operations Center in the town of St. Mary's. We are broadcasting live on the town of St. Mary's YouTube channel. The council for the town of St. Mary's acknowledges with gratitude and respect that we are gathering on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, people of the Longhouse, giving thanks for all creation. I'll begin this meeting today by getting declarations of pecuniary interest, starting with Councillor Craigmile.
None.
Councillor Edney.
None.
Councillor Luna.
None.
Councillor Lucas.
None.
And Councillor Pridham.
None.
And I have none. The agenda was circulated. Are there any errors, omissions, or additions to the agenda? Councillor Craigmile.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have two amendments for the agenda. The first one is I would like to table item 6.2.1.2 due to the recent correspondence and have staff report back no later than the first council meeting of March 2025. And the second amendment is under item 10. I do have a notice of motion to put into the agenda at that time.
Excellent. So we'll go through that when we get there. So I will see we have a motion on the floor to table that item at 6.2.1.2. Second? Okay. All in favor? Excellent. So tabled. Okay then. If there are any other additions or amendments? Seeing none, I'll seek a recommendation that the January 28th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be accepted as amended. Councillor Craigmile, Councillor Luna. All in favor? Carried. All right, we'll move on to the public input periods. Madam Clerk, I believe we have somebody here to speak tonight. Mr. Van Galen, if you would like to open for us, please.
Well, we sit here for the, okay. Can I clarify what your motion was, Jim?
Just to table that item that you're, item 33.
33? I thought it might be, that's
Yeah.
why, that'll
Have staff bring it back.
That'll
for the
shrink some of my
first week
comments. I appreciate it.
March.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Since I retired from council 6.5 years ago, people often say to me, do I miss it? And my flippant reply is every chance I get. But tonight, extraordinary circumstances have me recanting that. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you for a couple of minutes regarding your recent recreation master plan. And I think that you'll probably be happy to be finished with that as soon as possible, but I appreciate the extension that Councillor Craigmile just asked for. It should be abundantly clear that both groups would be dissatisfied with the motion that you have before you tonight, because it's a small win for one group and a huge loss for another, and I think a loss for the town. It's a missed opportunity and by no means a win for you. It's not just a matter of getting the two groups that I'm constantly hearing, you guys need to get together. I think we all three of us need to get together on this. So I have a proposal for you. I know you don't want to be dealing with this 5 to 10 years from now by kicking it down the road if you could solve the problem while you still are here for another 1.5 years. And I think it's the best that we take that opportunity to have all three groups and come up with a creative and permanent solution that satisfies the goals of both groups. I don't think that this process just needs to be consultation. I think it needs to be a creative team process. And I've heard a lot of why can't we do this and why not these conversations over the last few days while we've struggled with the results of your final draft. And I think some of the ideas have merit for both groups. So what I'm going to propose is that You've already set aside the motion for tonight. That gives us the time that I'm going to ask for. I would like you to strike an ad hoc committee for a couple of months with representatives from both the pickleball groups and the tennis club, plus a couple of representatives from the town, at least one member of council and one technical representative from staff, to sit down and work on a solution that will be both permanent and satisfactory to both groups. And the bonus here, I think, is that I think it can be done in the current location, because I think there's an inherent inefficiency with the layout because of the different size of courts that both groups use. If you put 2 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court, as you currently do, you soon use up all of the tennis courts, which is a real problem for us, of course. We've, I think, adequately responded to that. But you can actually, in the same space as 1 tennis court, place 3 or 4 pickleball courts. So I think what you need to do is wipe the slate clean and redesign the area. It will require some expansion, but I think it's well possible within the current footprint around the tennis courts. If you take that creative energy, I think we can achieve what we're all looking for. Permanent dedicated facilities for both pickleball and tennis in line with the requirements that have been put in the final draft. I know that while they're not here tonight, pickleball will be ecstatic to hear that you're not going to kick this down the road for another several years, as some members of council have told me. They would like to see a permanent solution. And of course, the tennis club would like to preserve the permanent solution that we came up with 10 years ago. So if you give us the time to set up that committee, we'll happily send our representatives and we'll meet either here or wherever you'd like us and adopt in that creative process and come back in 2 months, hopefully with a plan design that we think is feasible, not something that's going to be technically all laid out because we're not architects and engineers, but with assistance of staff, I think we can come up with something that's feasible to show an architect or an engineer, how do we build this? And also to relieve you of the burden, to start a creative fundraising process, such as we did 11 years ago for the renewal of the tennis courts, one that gets the community engaged. The community is going to be ecstatic to hear that we're getting along. Because this has been going on for 8 years, and it's just an inevitable conclusion that's happened in virtually every community across North America, that these two groups are constantly at odds with each other over the same space. But I think if we get together creatively, work on the solution, and then work on the fundraising, I think the community will respond. And I think grant proposals will fall in place, because I think the senior levels of government will be very happy to hear that 2 user groups got together and not only addressed a sport that's been around for 100 years, but one that has been successfully growing in this town for 10, and come up with a new facility that we can all be proud of and move on. You've already set aside the motion. That should give us the time. I'm asking for 2 months. I think that's fair. If in 2 months we can't come to a conclusion and we come back here with bruises and tears, bring your motion back, Jim, and we'll just have to live with the consequences. That's all I really have to offer you. I'm not going to get into details on what the proposal should look like, because that's part of the creative process. All I'm saying is I think it's possible, and I think coming together is better than what's happened. And I thank you for the opportunity, because as I said earlier, the phone calls I've had to make in the last few days have been a little bit more frank. And here I can be diplomatic and even offer an apology if people found those, the opportunity I have as a private citizen to speak frankly are different than how I addressed myself when I sat in your chairs for 18 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, thank you, Mr. Van Galen, for that input. Madam Clerk, is there any other forms of public input tonight?
Thank you, Chair. There are two additional pieces of correspondence that have been provided in advance of the meeting. The first one is from Andrea Macco, and it was received by email. She's addressed council and staff, and she states, I am compelled to voice my disappointment over council's motion to add pickleball lines to the south tennis courts. I'm pleased by the speed at which the draft plan was released for the public input, being the January 13th deadline. That public input was digested, the plan presented to the Strategic Priorities Committee on January the 21st, and now a mere week later, council seemingly ready to move ahead on its own motion to add lines to the only two true tennis courts in St. Mary's, indoors or outdoors. With the snow still a foot deep on the courts and the playing season 3 months ahead, the rush seems to be a rush. I hope this is a stopgap solution rather than a perceived permanent solution, or worse yet, a subtle punishment for two groups who are admittedly very passionate about their recreational pursuit of choice. While feelings don't account for much in municipal decisions, as a tennis player and someone who led the campaign to revitalize the courts to make them a desirable playing surface, it's hard to see an entity that has been known and used for one purpose for 70 years be continually modified for a different use. While I'm not a pickleball player, I sympathize with the group's desire to have quality, dedicated facilities for their sport. This is the same desire that drove the tennis club project. As such, we're a decade from that project. Both sports are growing, pickleball so much that the current space is no longer working for their purposes. The challenge is that more lines do both sports a disservice. Racket sports are inherently games of lines. It's all about the ball being in or out, not running fast or achieving a goal distinction. To help illustrate the challenge, imagine a football field overlaid with a smaller football field, perhaps with lines at every 7 yards rather than 10 yards. Now imagine trying to play on that. Even worse, imagine trying to learn to play, as our high school and elementary school students are increasingly attempting. I have played badminton at the high school for 20 years, and the varied lines are extremely problematic. However, there is little expectation that dedicated courts would be built due to the prohibitive pricing of constructing an indoor facility. Players wanting dedicated courts, just as in tennis and pickleball, join private clubs in London and Stratford. An indoor tennis court was explored a few years ago, but it's logistically impossible in any municipal facility. The master plan states that finding space for dedicated pickleball courts will take time, and that is understood. It's also understood that worldwide events may soon impact our little town, which is also understood. In lieu of more outlandish ideas such as paving over the North Quarry, I'd like to make two suggestions to council and staff as someone who is so closely associated with the courts. The first, the North Courts are a muddied mess of lines and zones. Has the cost of entirely repaint the North Courts with 3 horizontal courts on each tennis court, placed perpendicular to the tennis courts, being researched? If feasible, perhaps 2 courts could be added to one of the south courts, leaving 1 tennis court dedicated and likely reducing scheduling conflicts in result. The cost will be more, but much strife will be spared. Once the shockwaves of the Trump tariff subside, please form a committee to look for a new space for pickleball courts or tennis courts. While tennis courts are larger, there are fewer sound concerns, so it may be an easier task. My hope is that the Thames Crest subdivision parklands could be a prime contender. While I am no longer part of the tennis club executive, I will say this simple: reestablishing the 4 tennis courts we currently have are sufficient for our use, as well as that of local schools and for private instruction is sufficient. Thanks for listening. The second piece of correspondence is from Esther DeYoung. Esther has provided some images which I'll share with council by email after the fact. Esther states, "It is my understanding that there are plans to add pickleball lines to the south courts. I am hoping that at least one of the tennis courts could stay as is. I own pickleball paddles and paid for and attended a pickleball clinic this past summer. I am not writing this because I am anti-pickleball. There is much talk about pickleball being the fastest growing sport, but tennis is also a fast growing sport as evidenced by its popularity in Canada and locally with the good enrollment in tennis camps in recent years. For the past 2 years, we've been fortunate enough to have a local coach who used to coach the top 2 juniors in Canada instruct kids here. For kids to be able to learn and for the DCVI tennis team and gym class to play, a suitable tennis court should remain. If you struggle to serve because you're aiming for the wrong line or questioning what it is, in or out, it is a real drag for anyone, but especially cumbersome for those playing to learn either sport. I know from playing in Stratford that the courts newly redone at the Cirque Park look different, possibly better, to what we have on our north courts. Also, at the Shakespeare's courts, there are pickleball courts next to the regular tennis court. It is great that they've installed both. I have played each sport on both of these courts. I wish I'd taken the time to check out municipalities' offerings, but I haven't yet. I know the hope is for a dedicated space for each sport, but that won't be achieved soon. In the interim, should the decision be made to make over or add lines to the courts, it's my hope that solutions are found to spare at least one tennis court and or move creative fix that than what I read in item 33, and that being the recreation master plan. I'd encourage counselors and staff to try out pickleball and tennis if you've not already, to experience play with the current lines. The Water Street Recreation Area is special. I grew up playing minor ball at Teddy's, spent hours swimming at the quarry and still do, and learned tennis there at 11. I'm hopeful some of the frustrations surrounding the courts can be eased in 2025. Thank you for all you've done for this area so far, and then the screenshot she has provided.
Excellent.
Deputy Mayor Alward, those are the 2 pieces of correspondence. There is nothing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would anybody like to offer a comment or question to the forms of correspondence we've received? Councilor Lino?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I think the suggestion of an ad hoc group consisting of council staff, pickleball, and tennis representatives is a good idea. And I'd like to put forward a motion saying that we're going to form an ad hoc committee to resolve this somehow. I would put my name forward to. I think we need 2 councils on that. Maybe it would be better.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you be able to draft a motion to that specification? Any chance?
Certainly. I can support that at a later date, but just to call some guidance from your procedure bylaw, you do have a motion that's been tabled specifically regarding this recommendation. It is not debatable. That motion has been passed. That means that there is to be no other debate about recommendation 33 related to pickleball or tennis until that report comes back to council at a later date.
Yeah. You're good, okay.
No, so the clerk and I just had a conversation, procedurally, if you were putting a resolution on the floor that directed us to do something different than what recommendation 33 suggested, as in say you said, just rip out every single court barrier and be done with it, right?
Yep.
Then I would say that's not, I think that would not be debatable because that's an action. If you're talking about forming a committee that assists staff in developing the report back prior to March 1st, that's not telling us to do anything specific on the pickleball courts. That called. I think Jen and I might slightly differ. We're going to defer to you as the chair to decide if that's a play or not.
No, that aligns with my thinking as well, especially if we're gonna get this moving by that March meeting. I think it makes sense to just try and form an ad hoc committee as soon as we can. So-
Can you give us a few moments to write up the resolution?
Absolutely.
Indoors. We don't play indoors. Wish we did. Just watch.
As we sort of-
She's going to proceed to do it. I think that's been accepted the minutes right now, so you can move forward. No, I don't think we can, but would be nice.
After you table a motion for another time, table a motion for another time, which is what's happening. And say there's no conclusion.
A lot of times that happens.
What happens at that point? Can you retake?
I'm certain we can theorize on that. However, there is,
They'll have to come back and there'll be a motion and it'll be passed.
for sure, we can figure that out after this. So there is a motion on the screen there, council, if you would turn your attention there. And the motion reads that council strike an ad hoc committee consisting of 2 representatives from the St. Mary's Pickleball Association, 2 representatives from the St. Mary's Tennis Club, Councillor blank and Councillor blank and staff. And that the ad hoc committee be charged with meeting with staff to develop a review of alternatives for pickleball and tennis facilities as staff completes their report back on recommendation 33 of the Recreation, Culture, and Leisure Master Plan by the first regular meeting of council in March 2025. So first, I suppose, is everybody all right with that motion as it stands? Is there anything you'd like to change? Okay, so is there anybody who would like to volunteer to sit on this ad hoc committee from council? Councilor Luna? Good for you, Councilor Pridham. Excellent. Okay. So then I'll put the motion on the floor as it stands, that council strike an ad hoc committee consisting of 2 representatives from the St. Mary's Pickleball Association, 2 representatives from the St. Mary's Tennis Club, Councilor Luna and Councilor Pridham, and staff, and that the ad hoc committee be charged with meeting with staff to develop a review of alternatives by pickleball and tennis facilities as staff completes their first report back on recommendation number 33 of the Recreation, Culture, and Leisure Master Plan by the first regular meeting of council in March 2025. Do I have somebody willing to move that motion? Councilor Luna, seconder. Councilor Edme. Any questions? Councilor Pridham.
Just with the committee that's struck, does that mean that it's just those members of the committee that have been named 2 and 2 and then council that have any input, or is it kind of an open meeting for everyone from pickleball to show up and everyone from tennis to show up? I just want to know how that meeting would look.
Madam Clerk, would you be able to answer? Because they would be public meetings, correct? So it seems that the audience would be open.
So there would be
Could be.
limited conversation. Is that how that would? I'm just concerned that things might get just out of control, basically.
Your rules of procedure would still prevail.
Yeah.
So your rules of procedure say you're not allowed to take delegations from the gallery, except for limited circumstances like we have on our meeting tonight. So like any other meeting, the public will be invited. It's a meeting that is open to the public, but not a public participation meeting. They've been invited to watch.
Okay.
Participation is confined to the people who are sitting around the table.
Now, in terms of the process of selecting or getting members from those 2 clubs, is that just an after the fact thing, or do we have to decide that here?
I think in a typical circumstance, definitely would likely reach out to a member, the president of both associations, and ask them to put the names forward.
Wicked. All in favor? Move. Okay, excellent. So now we move on to minutes.
Well, he's teaching for a few years, so I suggested. And then I suggested.
Well, there's still.
All right, council, lock it in. Still got a meeting going. So I got the minutes. Are there any problems with the minutes? All right, seeing none, I will seek a motion that the 6.1 regular council, January 14, 2025 meeting minutes be approved by council and signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Somebody willing to move that motion? Councilor Luna, second. Councilor Lucas. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. So next we'll move on to 6.2, the Strategic Priorities Committee, January 21st. And we have a recommendation that the January 21st, 2025 Strategic Priorities Committee meeting minutes be received by council and signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. And that minutes item 4.1.1 and 4.2.4 be raised for consideration. So we'll go through that now. So we have 6.2.1.1, and that is the recommendation that the draft recreation, culture, and leisure master plan be adopted as presented.
Do that resolution first.
Oh, that was the first, okay. So yeah, can I have a mover for that first recommendation? Councilor Pridham, second. Councilor Luna. Any questions? All in favor? Now, so 6.2.1, rec culture and leisure master plan, and 6.2.1.1, approval. We have the recommendation that the draft recreation, culture, and leisure master plan be adopted as presented, and that the recreation, culture, and leisure master plan be referred to the Recreation and Leisure Advisory Committee and Heritage and Culture Advisory Committee to develop a recommendation to council for the priority order of implementation of the recommendations contained in the master plan that relate to each committee's respective terms of reference. Is somebody willing to move that motion? Councilor Lucas, second. Councilor Craigmile. Any questions? Councilor Luna.
I have a question. The recreation, culture, and leisure master plan did or did not contain those 70-something recommendations? It did. So how can we approve that, but
Because recommended.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go back to what I said the other day. Look at this as, it's a plan, not a description. So it can contain recommendation 33 in it. You've tabled this and you're expecting staff to report back. So I would think, even though they're all recommendations in there, probably some of them will be, but not all of them will be implemented specifically as recommended in the recreation master plan. In most cases, it just gets a conversation started.
okay, thank you. That's everything.
Excellent. All in favor? Okay. So we have tabled the 6.2.1.2, so we will continue on to community grants. And 6.2.2, the recommendation that council approves the following amounts for the 2025 standing community grants. United Way Perth Huron, $11,079. St. Mary's DCBI, $1,500. St. Mike's Catholic School, $750. Community Dinner, $1,500. Canada Day Parade, $3,000. Station Gallery, $10,000. That council approves the following amounts, just obviously, yeah. So can I have somebody approve the first few grants there, please? Council Pridham? Is it just all together? So we'll continue. That council approves the following amounts for the 2025 application-based community grants. Teddy Bear Reunion, $1,500. St. Mary's Horticultural Society, $225. St. Mary's Kinsman, $5,000. St. Mary's Community Players, $0. Alzheimer's Society Around Perth, $0. Giving Tuesday, $892. St. Mary's Farmers Market Association, $2,000. St. Mary's Ringette Association, $0. St. Mary's Imagination Library, $3,500. St. Mary's Soccer Club, $0. Caswentha Two Row Now, $3,000. St. Mary's Curling, $0. Goals, $3,427.50. Royal Canadian Legion, $2,550. St. Mary's Minor Hockey Association, $0. The St. Mary's with Love, $1,826. St. Mary's Minor Basketball, $0. Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, $2,500. St. Mary's Lincoln's, $1,751. That council appoints an ad hoc committee with 3 members of council and staff, director of corporate services, director of community services, and finance manager to review the community grant policy. Do I have somebody willing to move that large collective motion? Councilor Luna, Councilor Pridham. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. So we have the Policy Review Committee recommendation that council appoints Councilors Luna, Craig Mile, and Pridham to an ad hoc committee for the purpose of reviewing the community grant policy. Is somebody willing to move that motion? Councilor Lucas. Second. Councilor Edney. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. I see there is no listed correspondence, so I'll defer to our clerk, nothing listed. We'll move on to staff reports, and we'll go with 8.1, that's administration. Mr. Kipper, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I just want to be fairly brief tonight, but want to touch on 2 things. So the downtown service location review, Councilor Pridham did report on that last meeting about our recent meeting in December. On tonight's agenda, I had meant to include a long form attachment that provided a bit more of a detailed summary of that meeting. I mistakenly not, but I did forward it on to council today. I wanted to provide that to council just so that you can have an early sense of where the project's heading. And I felt that was important because the natural steps in the project are for your steering committee to do a lot of the heavy work, vetting the public comments, vetting the wants and needs that have been shared by staff and the public and other community members. And then eventually to get to a point where they make a recommendation to council on the realistic ways we should use 14 Church Street and 5 James Street. I'd say we're about anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks away from a report coming to council. The committee has toured 14 Church Street, the library, the station, and the station gallery. Next week, they're going on a tour of a cultural hub in Cambridge, so they can get a sense of what that looks like. And then we will have another meeting with the committee because the architect has now started assigning square footages to some of the uses that you'll see in that long form summary. But again, I wanted council to have that opportunity to see where the project's headed tonight. And it's safe to say that at a high level, 14 Church Street is starting to be viewed as a cultural and community hub, with the first floor being lots of open public gathering areas, multi-purpose rooms, programming space, a possible gallery. The second floor being more for private meeting spaces, larger, like both small and large meeting spaces, a place where agencies could come in, adult learning could use, but also 5, 10, 15 years down the road could very easily be transitioned into municipal offices as we grow. So that's kind of the theme and the arc that building's taking. There's been less conversation about 5 James Street because I think really the use of 5 James Street will hinge on what 14 Church Street is decided upon. That if the long-term goal is to put a gallery in 14 Church Street, and most indicators are showing that that's what the public would like to see. That decision really needs to be made first before we can figure out what's going to go on 5 James Street. But it's there, and Councillor Pridham and I are here tonight to answer many questions that council may have, because that might help us guide the committee as we have that conversation going forward. The other thing I just wanted to note was PC Connect. So I don't have any stats. I showed the annual stats here, but an important project update, and I'll give you more detail in a month or so. But we do want to see the project go forward through the end of this year. For a long time, I had explained that without government funding, we didn't see a future for the project in 2026 and beyond. The City of Stratford is now turning their minds to what kind of a no-frills service would look like that we could operate, continue to operate with Viago in 2026 and beyond. that might mean, reducing the routes slightly, reducing the number of hours it runs, reducing weekends, because we are seeing in North Perth and in St. Mary's a high uptake for employment purposes. So if we just geared that service around picking people up at the start of or dropping people off at the start of the day and then picking them up at the end of the day, it could be an alternative that we would bring forward to council. So you'll see more of that as the year goes on, but it's the first time I actually had some positive news to say that we might be able to give council a viable option for that purpose, for more regional transportation. So those are the two key things that in my staff report I wanted to update. Jenna, did you have anything you wanted to add? So the clerk's department has provided a fairly detailed overview of what they're working on today, as well as their year in review, and Jenna's happy to take any questions.
All right, any questions from council? Councilor Luna?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Regarding Church Street, 14 Church Street North, have you gotten as far as thinking about an elevator or lift, or
Yes.
is that?
Yes, the architect would strongly recommend that we do have an elevator, and just based on the use of the space, it's highly likely, if not fully likely, that we'll also need two sets of egress stairs as well. So that's one of the exercises at the staff level. And forgive me, Councilor Pridham, because she doesn't know this yet. At the staff level, we are also doing some work to be helpful to the committee, where we have the long laundry list of all the uses that were prioritized by the committee. We know the square footages that the architect has assigned to them, as well as all of those kind of ancillary uses like hallways, bathrooms, a vestibule, all that good stuff. And it's very clear right from the outset that we're overcommitted, and we're going to have to at the staff level, we're going to have to make some recommendations to the committee what could be prioritized. But stairways, entrance vestibule for climate control, elevator, bathrooms, those are all things that we will have.
Councilor Pridham?
Thank you. I've got a question about 14 Church Street as well.
Sure.
Is there, at the staff level and the design level, any consideration for staging the work that needs to be done there? So main floor, leaving the second floor vacant. I know that there was some discussion on that, and I'm wondering how that is looking to play out.
At the staff level, no, we haven't talked about that yet. And I don't think we have probably good data yet to be able to share with you. So when this is all finished, what the finished product should look like is probably a very brief covering report from A-Link, a concept plan for what both 14 Church and 5 James Street would look like, as well as probably a Class D, which is a very high level cost estimate to do the work. I think once council sees that cost, that's when you would make your decision whether you want to only finish one floor or multiple floors. Mm-hmm. I know Grant will probably tell me, knowing him well enough, that it's kind of like leaving your basement unfinished in your house. It's one of those things that you just never get done. It's better to do it all at once. And I think that's been kind of our philosophy moving along, is that it won't be any cheaper in the future. It'll only cost you more money. So you're better when you already have everybody mobilized, it's just better to finish the space. Now, finished to what level is a different conversation.
Yeah, I finished to access the space, but maybe not finished to the point of being the use space every day sort of thing. Yeah. Just put in the basics for finishing in the future. I think
that's a conversation we'll have to have. Later this year, if not next year as well.
Yeah, I kind of feel that that's a conversation that council will be involved in, because the committee, sitting on the committee, the wants and needs for everyone is all very, high and top priority. And so for the committee to decide not to pursue one or the over another, they would want it all. So I feel like council would be the people putting on the brakes or doing it in a stage.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make awareness of that fact.
Yeah, and that's there's a key checkpoint in the project that once the committee gets themselves to the point where they can say, this is what we truly think should go in 14 Church Street. I will just keep using 14 Church Street as an example. I'm not going to give instructions to the architect to develop concept plans until I have council's blessing of that. So when we planned out the project, once the committee gets themselves to that point, then I bring a report to this table, and then I ask council to review what the committee's recommended and make a decision of whether or not we move forward with that vision and concept, or whether you refer it back to the committee. Which is part of the reason why I included that attachment in the agenda, to keep you up to speed with our minutes are without note or comments, so now you can see a document that's a bit more detailed. It gives a nice summary of some of the work that Angela's done in kind of reconciling all of the wants and needs and what we've heard from the public and stakeholders and other committees, so that it's not a surprise when I bring it to you in, say, March or early April.
Yeah, and I also feel sorry for you.
Councilor Brady.
I also feel that, along with the construction and the ability to open up the building, there'll also be the staffing aspect of it and how that plays out and then the cost involved in that. So I think for council, it would be advantageous to have a full, complete understanding of the outcome and costs as well. Thank you.
All right, any further questions? Councilor Craigmore.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would just like to add a comment here. When I read through the report, which was very detailed, there was a section there, community partners in education. Excuse me. And I thought it was very important that our business community receive appreciation for all they do.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? All right, then I will seek a motion under admin 02-2025, January monthly report for administration. Recommendation that admin 02-2025, January monthly report, administration be received for information. Can somebody move that motion? Councilor Craigmile. Seconder, Councilor Luna. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. So we will move on to 8.2, Building and Development Services. Mr. Brower, please.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, and good evening, Council. A couple of points that are not within your council package tonight. First of all, I've been told recently that they updated the heating at Town Hall is going to be fixed later on this week. For those of you that are wondering, saying, hey, we just did a large spend there. We did a number of renovations there, kind of what's going on with the heat and stuff like that. So you have to remember that the boiler was not replaced. The boiler is roughly 13 years old. There are 2 boilers within the system, and we figure from our talking to the contractors and stuff, it is the circulation pumps that is not, both circulation pumps on both boilers went down. So later on this week, we expect to have those up and going. So hopefully that's a good news for staff that are in the building. Next few points I'm going to talk about is basically the stats and kind of within my year yet. And we did have a strong year within the building department as well, within as far as our building permits issued, as well as our residential units. So we continue to maintain that plus 40 units per year. Historically, it's all set around with 40 permits a year, or 40 dwelling units a year. But that spiked during COVID, where we see numbers as high as 72. Currently, those numbers, I think the 5-year average is sitting at 49.2 units. So again, showing strong numbers. One thing that's interesting to note is our housing stock. 15 years ago, strong housing stock was semi-detached, and then singles a close second. Now it's currently apartment buildings and townhouses, and then semi-detached and singles are following that. Also, we did have 6 accessory units. Again, that is showing again good strength within those numbers. Is something we haven't seen. Probably we seen it 4 years ago or 5 years ago, but again, it's kind of rebounding back. It's a lot more people are talking about it. A lot more people are talking about it at the front end, and not as a secondary thought of putting that secondary unit or that accessory unit within there. Another thing, we did have a yearly tailgate. We figure it's been going on 17 years now. We had over 35 local builders, trades, etc. within there. It was a 2-part day because of all the building code changes that we did talk about. But again, it went very well. The building community and development community is very receptive to it. There's lots of good discussion with that, and that's not only done with the development team, but also with Public Works, as well as the finance as well. So some good information being passed around there. Next thing I kind of want to talk about is the CIP. So the CIP is not being what we've been doing a little different this year. We've been accepting applications. Right now, we think we have enough applications to fulfill our budget. we think, which is, it's both a good and bad news story because of how close we are in the year to fulfilling everything. So as those unravel out for the next month or two, I'll be able to update council within the next 2 months of kind of how that's going. But it generally look between the heritage grants as well as a community improvement plan or grants that we may be filled already, just judging by what the projects are and kind of what they're looking at. The next thing is we received, actually, we did not receive word, but there was a press release put out by about the Housing Accelerator Fund, CMHC. So we were not successful again at this time. There were a number of local municipalities that were. So we're talking with the planning coordinator, but our housing rep to help understand kind of what's going on. We have already reached out to CMHC to find out where the chinks in the armor are, to see what we need to do to update our report for next time or get our application a bit stronger. The last thing I want to talk about is we will be doing a Planning 101 seminar. As council knows, we met with a local neighborhood group back in November, talked about planning processes, talked about how planning happens, what happens provincially, what happens locally, and what happens and kind of how we deal with things in St. Mary's. Because of some of the good feedback that we had from the applicants or the participants within that or the attendees within that, we decided to make it a town-wide event. We're looking at early March to be holding this. There'll be a number of press releases. It is open to anybody within the community. Again, it's just to help push that message of kind of what happens when I get this notice that a planning application is coming to next door. What are my rights? What can I do? What are the processes behind it? Because I think there's a lot of uncertainty, misnomers, kind of how things work. So we want to make sure that we get that message out. Just judging by the applications or the type of applications that we're going to be seeing in front of the planning committee, I think something like this will help. It'll be much better for the community to help understand the planning process and how it works in St. Mary's. So we'll be pushing that out very shortly. Deputy Mayor, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments from council? Councilor Luna.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Grant, are you able to comment on the status of the apartment building for James Street North? That was supposed to go there on, is it the corner of Glass and James? Court over and.
So the update that I can give you through your worship to Councilor Luna, the update that I can give you is that we've had no application for a permit at this time. But that's probably the most I can tell you right now.
Thank you.
Councilor Pruitt.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to comment that the Planning 101 course or seminar, that's a great idea. I'd like to just suggest that it's offered, the course is outlined in a language that the average person would understand instead of doing builder talk or that sort of thing, so that they come out knowing that this is an education for just general public.
Okay, thank you for that. It is one of the things, so I'm helping put things together, so it will be a simpler language. But I'll make sure that we leave it at plain language that everybody can understand. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
So, any other comments? Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, through Deputy Mayor. Mr. Brower, just again, I want to add what Councilor Pridham said, that I think that Planning 101, I think that would be great. And will there be, I'm assuming there will be some advertising or communication going out across our various platforms, advertising that. I would say make that a priority so that it's people know.
Councilor Lucas, the Deputy Mayor, Councilor Lucas, this is what we kind of have on the agenda. So I've been working with the communications team. We are going to do a press release in the newspaper. So there's going to be, there is also going to be some press releases on the social media, pushing that out. We talked about both, I think, when they pay to have it go out, I forget what the terminology is, but I think they boost certain things on the social media. We were not looking at doing that because it pushes it outside the region. But there are going to be a number of social media posts as well as advertising on this event. Again, to make sure that we have everybody that we need to. Currently, it's slated to be at the end zone at the PRC. If we need to, we will probably look at moving that if we do have a bigger audience that can fit that. Based on, I think they can fit right around probably 150 people, if not maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, depending on seating, standing, etc. But our intent is not to hold back anybody because we want to make sure that everybody is there. It is going to be a nighttime event, so it is not going to be during the day, to help encourage more people to be there. We have talked about recording it and using it as an educational piece as well. And we're kind of looking at what that looks like and some of the costs associated with it. But one of the ideas is that we're taking a look at that we can have it, that we have the data all the time or that information all the time that we can post it on our website. So if somebody's not able to attend or somebody forgets something, they can go back to our website or to a YouTube channel, take a look at that. And those are all things that we're looking at right now.
Councilor Lucas.
Thank you. And then just one follow-up with the Housing Accelerator Fund. Given the current political climate, I wouldn't maybe put too much effort into chasing down what's wrong with that. I feel like there's going to be a whole lot of changes in the next few months. So,
Thank you.
Okay, any further comments and questions from council? All right, seeing none, I will seek a motion that the recommendation is that DEV 01-2025 January monthly report building and development be received for information. Can I have a mover? Councilor Pridham, second. Councilor Craigmile. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Next, move on to the Community Services Monthly Report. Ms. Ishii, please.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? All right. I have a very lengthy report before you tonight. We have completed our summary for 2024. I'm not going to go through and read everything, but I will definitely make some highlights or highlight a couple of areas for council. A couple of things that are really important to note is we did work last year very hard on the Rec, Culture and Leisure Master Plan, so we will be bringing individual recommendations forward to council over the next number of years as we implement some of the items that were recommended within the plan. In this report, you will also notice that a number of our programs, I know I talk about program growth and the number of participants, but you'll see the program growth throughout the report, and we did a year-over-year comparison so council could see how the programs are shaping up within our organization. And I also wanted to highlight the triathlon. So we did the triathlon this past summer with Ontario Triathlon. We're looking to host another one coming up this summer, which will be very different than the previous one. So I want to reassure council it will not go through the downtown core. It will be different, but we will be a stop point for Triathlon Ontario that hosts these annually. They're looking at our community as a community that can host these events and bring individuals in. So I'll bring more information to council as we move through the planning stages. I've worked with Public Works on routes for the bike and run, and of course the swim will continue at the quarry this summer. And that's all that I wanted to update. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, any questions from council? Councilor Luna.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Stephanie, on page 41, under the program details, the description for pickleball is the same as the description for minor ball. Is that, I'm assuming that's a typo?
Oh, yes. Sorry, let me just look at it one quick second.
Well, should have read, just for curiosity. If you don't, that's fine. I just.
So yeah, no, St. Mary's Pickleball Association is also, no, that is a mistake, sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. I could get that corrected.
But the numbers are correct?
The numbers are correct. Yes. So we went through, because of the Rec and Leisure Master Plan this year, we had to get all the numbers for all associations within our community. So we have very accurate numbers on membership for every sports organization this year.
Any other comments? Councilor Pruitt?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to comment, reading through this, it's amazing, all of the offerings that are within your department, and, just congratulations on all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions and comments from council? Councilor Lucas?
Thank you, Mayor. Stephanie, just a question, and maybe this isn't an appropriate time or question, but I'm wondering how's the pool progress, the renovations coming along?
So I don't have a whole lot to update. We are trying to plan a meeting this week. It is progressing. I can't give you a timeline as to whether we'll be done by May as we're moving forward, because that was the intention. We were hoping we would be done by May, but as we're moving forward, I do suspect it will take a little bit longer. Things are progressing, things are coming in place, but that's about all I can tell you at this point. But I can get more information and I can bring updates to council more regularly if you would like as well. I can do that in the next monthly report.
Yeah, no, that's great. It was just out of curiosity. We're a couple months into that project, so
yeah.
we want to know where we're at. Thank you.
Excellent. Councilor Craigmont.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Steph, good report. I like reading all that to see what's been happening, and you get to that section of the senior services. I was trying to find a negative somewhere, but I kept reading about increased funding, increased volunteers, new grants. I mean, pretty well done, that group.
Thank you, Councilor Craigmont. All right. Any other comments and questions from council? Steph, I suppose I would just offer that as the BIA rep for council, I'm certain there will be some members quite happy with the triathlon decision and potentially moving it out of the downtown. And I'm certain that you know that just as well as I do. So thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
With that, I will seek a recommendation that DCS 01-2025 January monthly reports, community services be received for information. Madam Move. Councilor Lucas, seconder. Councilor Luna. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Ms. Ishii. All right, next we'll move on to corporate services, and that is Mr. Moran, please.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. You can hear me okay? So the monthly report for you is quite lengthy as well. I won't go through it. This is all information that we've talked about and discussed in previous reports. I will highlight a few items. Number one is our interim tax bill is currently printed and that will be mailed out this week. So just so everybody knows, the first billing of 2025 will have two due dates, the first being February 28th and the next being May 30th. And again, those will be mailed out later this week. We will have some social media and other correspondence and communication to go out along with that, as well as we made up last year an explanation of how to read your tax bill and what information is on there. So again, we found that very helpful and we'll continue with that communication. The other one I just want to highlight for you that we were working on in 2024 is the tourism marketing strategy. It is complete. We do have it. We've just been having a hard time finding a spot to put it on the agenda. So it will come forward to the next strategic priorities committee meeting in February. So we look forward to seeing that master plan, which will kind of help us and guide us on the tourism marketing side of things moving forward. And then lastly, just again, there are two positions vacant in corporate services, both of which, one in finance, one in communication, both of which are well underway. And again, hopefully over the next 4 to 6 weeks, I can have some updates for you in regards to filling those positions. With that, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments from council? Councilor Lucas.
It was a busy night for me tonight. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question regarding tax bills and you saying they're going to be mailed out. Is there any thought given to digital copies, given that Canada Post was on strike, and luckily we got them back in business, but if they were still on strike, it seems like we would be held hostage as far as getting our tax bills out. I'm just wondering if there's thought or appetite to modernize that program or that process.
Through the Deputy Mayor, yes, actually, we will have, and we do have that functionality now. And we've got it tested and working. So one of the challenges we have with it is the current tax bill makeup right now is we have pre-printed forms. So those pre-printed forms are put in the printer and the information is laid on top of that. So what we're doing now is, in order to properly send out emailed bills through the system, we just want to change our bill a little bit. So I'm actually meeting with our folks tomorrow to talk about that very issue. Functionality is there. We're going to look at doing that our hope is for the final tax bill, which will be issued in July of this year. We've got a lot of emails already, and we've got a lot of those requests coming in. So, and the other side of that, Councillor Lucas, obviously postage has gone up recently as well, significantly. So again, there is some significant cost savings that go along with that as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Excellent. Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none, I'll seek recommendation that COR 07-2025, January monthly report for corporate services be received for information. Have somebody willing to move that motion? Councilor Luna, second. Councilor Edney. Any further questions? All in favor? Carried. So we'll move on to 8.4.2, the adoption of the 2025 budget. Mr. Bren, we're still on the screen.
All right. So one of the biggest things that we worked on, obviously, in 2024 was the budget. And Council, we've talked about this several times already this year. So I just want to give you a fairly brief update, but I don't want to miss anything either. So just to kind of recap, our total tax levy for 2025's budget will be $15,710,731. That's a 5.48% increase over the year before. Our net growth, I'm going to get into a little bit more about growth in a minute, but is 266,000 and some change. And then what that creates is our net levy increase, which is again the tax increase that people will see of 3.63%. That's a little bit lower than what we discussed the last time we discussed the budget. And the changes are on page 68 that we're going to talk about. On the capital side, there is one significant change here. Item number one on page 68 is $160,000 for some of the engineering work in relation to the planning of the light industrial park. So again, a strategic concept that we're looking at moving forward, and there's an explanation there in relation to some of the legal work, the surveys, and the preliminary work on that front. The second item, obviously, is an item that we talked about from the last meeting in regards to the rec leisure plan, and based on the conversation tonight, that will be presumably in my recommendation, that will be amended in regards to the $20,000 for the pickleball items that were discussed at last meeting, but again, amended for this evening. Both of those don't necessarily impact the levy. They would have impacted the reserve transfers for capital that we use to fund our capital. On the operating side, at the first meeting in January, we approved the library budget. So that led to a decrease in the budget of $17,041. Again, one of the changes was our assessment growth. It was higher than we predicted. So that made a change. And then lastly, again, as a follow-up from their last meeting on community grants, we did have a significant discussion about community grants, one of which was community players and the permit fees, the sign permit fees that they pay. We just kind of didn't have all the information at the last meeting, but in further conversations, there is a fee there of $100 per year. So 2 sign permits would be $200 a year. Again, what we've included in this is a recommendation that those fees be waived, and there'll be a decrease, a slight decrease in the building department's revenue of $200 this year. Again, not a large impact to the budget, but wanted to make sure that it's addressed here in this document, and council's aware of that change. So again, there's more information in the report, but on page 69 is a summary of growth. And I want to talk a little bit about this because in the chart you can see our growth in 2024 is fairly consistent from what we've seen, a little higher than the last couple of years, and a little higher than what we had predicted it to be. But there's a caveat. Growth, assessment growth is all based on timing. So what happens is, as you already heard from the building department, new housing starts, et cetera, all of those building permits get added on. Once that permit is approved and that permit is closed, all of that information goes to MPAC. MPAC does its work. In a lot of cases, will come and visit the property. In other cases, does their analytical work, and then that assessment will come online. MPAC's goal is to get 85% of all building permits on the assessment roll within 1 year of occupation. Sometimes they hit that target, sometimes they don't. But again, it's all a timing issue in regards to that. So in this year, you'll see our growth numbers are a little higher than we predicted. But on the flip side, also what's happened is in early 2025, we've had some changes. They're not appeals, they're requests for reconsiderations where MPAC has reversed or made changes to the original supplementary assessments that we've seen. And there's been some large ones this year to the tune of about $30,000. So as of right now in 2025, our growth is around negative $30,000. And really that relates back to the increase we've seen in 2024. It all works out in the end and it's all a timing issue. So what I'm saying by that is the growth will impact the 2025 taxes. But you'll see in 2026, I may be budgeting or recommending we budget for a little bit less growth because we're already starting with a couple of decreases based on some assessment changes that you'll see and hear about as we get into the 2026 budget process. But again, over time, you can see we have a pretty good trend going. Things have been fairly consistent over the last 4 years. And again, that's the good news. We are continuing to see some good growth numbers. And again, it's important that we don't have too much growth too fast, but at the same time, it's been nice to see that consistency. So again, going back to page 70, this is a chart you've seen a lot of times before. I show it quite often. It'll show those numbers I talked about. And again, what you're going to see across the board is our tax increase at 3.63%. Again, we have some nuances within our tax bills. We have a separate charge for wheelie bins and solid waste. That's gone up a little bit. And then the education taxes stayed the same. And then our water and wastewater rates are going up as well. So that kind of just sums things up for you as to what the burden is on an average residential dwelling in St. Mary's. And you'll see on average, you're going to see about $136 is what that 3.63% means when you tie in everything else from a tax perspective. Again, when we look at it and add in the water and wastewater rate increases, that increase for the entire year should be around $165 on a typical property in St. Mary's. So with that said, there will be a bylaw for you this evening. Again, you'll see my recommendation, but again, I assume we will make one amendment to that recommendation, being project number 65, which was the pickleball courts and nets. And what I will say, if and when decisions are made moving forward, I will be available to discuss what we can do if there is a financing need. And again, we'll have opportunities to discuss how those would be funded if they're not in the budget. And again, there's mechanisms we can deal with that moving forward at a later date. So happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Luna.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So Andre, just to clarify, that $20,000, the budget change number 2 for pickleball, tennis, whatever, it's just gonna sit there and could it be used for anything related to that in the future if that's, we've struck an ad hoc committee. So is it fair to say that committee has a $20,000 budget as of now?
So through the Deputy Mayor, arguably there's two options here on the table. One would be to amend this regulation to strike that from being in the budget and then therefore it's not in the budget, it's not approved. Anything moving forward that will come from staff and that subcommittee or ad hoc committee would come forward to council, and council would then decide how to proceed with that and make any decisions. Your second option, I guess, Councillor Loon, is what you just referred to as it remains in the budget at a $20,000 item. We don't do anything with it until that ad hoc committee comes back. And depending on those recommendations, there presumably would be $20,000 available to council to decide on using it or changing it or not using it at all, something to that effect.
Did I hear from the CAO?
So, yes, through your worship, my view is that you strike it, because I suspect $20,000 might not be the number, so we're gonna amend it anyway. So I would say to strike it, let the committee come forward with the, Stephanie and I have been back and forth already. What I suspect will happen at the committee level is that they'll narrow it down to say 1, 2, 3, or 4 options. Those will get priced out with a recommendation to council of its own specific budget, and then you just, Andre can correct me, I think we've done this in the past, pass a resolution that says the budget be amended to add new capital project 65 at a budget of $50,000. So I think you just probably start fresh, clean slate for the committee, and then just when they have their recommendation and staff report back in March, that first meeting in March, it'll come with the budget number itself.
Yeah, just, Councillor Craig now?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Andre, can you just help my memory out a little bit from the internal charges there with the self-funded funds? Approximately how much did we put into reserves at the end of the budget process?
Through the deputy mayor, we had cut that number in half to 100, and I believe it was $26,000.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Craig.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Andre, I think the way I'm looking at it anyways, that net levy increase is very reasonable considering all the inflationary pressures. And I think kudos to staff at all centers for controlling their costs and finding efficiency. So I think it was a job well done.
Thank you. And through the deputy mayor, I would echo that. And certainly we are the ones in finance that help put all of this together, but really it's work of the entire team. And it really goes back to some work we did back in 2019, looking at efficiencies, and that trend has continued every year. A lot of the conversations happening with various departments around how can we continue to operate at current service levels, but looking at opportunities to find savings or find efficiencies to kind of include the services we provide and enhance on them in some cases, but also do it at a reasonable amount. And again, it's the work of the entire team, and I'm very happy with where we're at with this budget and again, past budgets.
Excellent. Any other comments and questions? All right, well, with that, I will follow the recommendation here that COR 01-2025 adoption of the 2025 budget report be received, and that council approves $160,000 for capital project number 64, service industrial land, to be included in the 2025 capital budget to be funded from the industrial land reserve, and that council approves an exemption for the sign permit fee listed in the fee bylaw for the community players twice annual performances located at Town Hall and the Friends of the Library's twice annual book sale, and that council consider bylaw 05-2025 being a bylaw to adopt the 2025 budget and tax levy. Somebody willing to move that motion? Councillor Craig Mile. Second. Councillor Lucas. Any questions, any discussion? Councillor
Good question for the clerk. So the bylaw will be adjusted to regarding the $20,000.
Yes, through the chair, when we have the signed bylaw, the schedule that's attached to it will not include 65. It's not that it will be struck, it just will be removed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All in favor? Carried. All right, we will move on to 8.5, Fire and Emergency Services. Chief Anderson, please. Thank you, Mr. Moran.
There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start off with my monthly report for January. It's a nice review of 2024 in a whole. Probably one of the most significant things that when you look at the report was the call volume. So at 162, all-time record 140, and if you compared to the previous year, 2023, of 122 calls. So speaks volumes as to the amount of work and effort of the volunteer firefighters and responding to the various calls and such. And there was quite an array of calls. If you look at the emergency responses in the charts now, compared to back in 2013 and where we're sitting now, the increased workload and such. Once again, it's quite significant. The only dip there was that in 2020, COVID, everything kind of quieted down a little bit, but it was on the uprise there. Average response time still doing quite well with 6 minutes, 8 seconds, maybe a little bit up, but then again, we were probably responding to further destinations within Perth South and such, so that which adds to that. The comparisons of 2008 to 2024, the different various responses, probably some of the more significant ones you're going to note is medical. So we are no longer, it has to go under medical. We're no longer able to say that we've been called for a lift assist. The fire marshal's office does not recognize a lift assist. So we have to put it down as a medical. So if someone had a VSA or such, it gets merged into that, where before we used to be able to separate it. So that's why you're probably seeing a quite a significant jump there in that. And carbon monoxide, it's just the way it is now. There's so much information out there and warnings. People get nervous. So we get a lot of calls for that. Dollar loss values pretty much the same as the other last year, the 2023. For the year in review for the Chief Fire Prevention Officer, again, good year, 265 total inspections. As public education and such, same, very robust. I say for a small town like that, we do our best to get out. And some of the other events where we're able to go out, meet with the public, and pass on the word of fire prevention and such. The programs that were in place with the Fanshawe Mentorship Program, that continues today. The cooperative education program, once again, I'm very proud of that. We're doing that since 2017. A lot of fire departments do not offer that, so it has been very successful. Within personnel, there was a lot of movement again this year. With as we have guys retiring and resigning, movement happens within the ranks. So you can see quite a bit of movement there. And of course, comes new hires. So we just recently hired January 1st 2 more firefighters. Training, you can see all the various courses and such. That will, I can tell you something that will not. It's only going to get more this year. I've already scheduled probably, I'd say, at least 15 different courses, personnel on 15 different courses, and it's only January. So we're trying to meet those 2026 and 2028 deadlines. So these are ongoing. So a lot of training in addition to our calls. Charity and fundraisers, St. Mary's Fire is involved in a lot for the town, well respected for that. Give them a lot of praise and such for all that they do. And it's good public relations for the department and such. Some of the highlights was the tiered response agreement, obviously coming to that. That was a long time coming. The community risk assessment that was conducted. Chaplain, his hours, you can see that. He's heavily involved with the department. And then you jump up to January 2025, not only the 17 days to report on, but still, it's, you can see what's going on there as well. Public education and, the training and such. And I applied for, a grant, Firehouse Subs. I've actually applied for 3 grants already. And what are we sitting here at, January 28th? So I'm trying to get a lot of equipment through grants. So, and that's my monthly report.
Excellent. Any questions for the chief here? Councilor Luna?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. 2 questions, Chief, if I may. What's the provincial, response time? Don't they have a response time that we're supposed to meet, or?
Yeah, I base it on, if you go by city, kind of that's what it is. If it's a city, you're supposed to be able to respond from the time it's initiated to on site is within 4 minutes, and that's to be reached at 90% of the time. But that's a city. There's nothing really for rural, which we're both. We're kind of urban and rural. So if you start looking at like a city where there's firefighters 24 hours a day in that department at the ready, so when that alarm goes off and they respond, I think we're doing pretty darn good with 6 minutes. And that's guys that are, in the middle of the night or working days and such. So yeah, I'm quite very happy with the results.
And one other question for the community risk assessment, is that concerning Perth South? Is that the inventory of their properties, or is that a separate thing?
That was just for St. Mary's. I was only to do it on St. Mary's. I know they've completed theirs. I have reviewed it. I think the CAO's seen it as well. We're waiting if there's going to be any direction from Perth South from that, but I know they've identified quite a few areas. Let's say shortfalls, if you will, within the system. So, but that I think that would be on them to reach out based on the information they were provided by the company they hired.
Any other questions? Councilor Craigmont.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Chief, I had 2 questions. I'm going to ask you the one that I know you'll be able to answer right off the top of your head.
Okay.
And that is, I found it interesting, the number of open air burns that you had to attend to last year. And I'm thinking they might be backyards or something. I mean, I have no idea what they are, but I wonder if we ever recoup our costs for those things.
Those are, okay. Yeah, through your worship to the councillor, you know what? I'll tell it was mostly Perth South, those open air burns. This is probably one of the best years for St. Mary's not having reports of open air burns like on neighbors. It was very good this year. And remember, we had a wet summer. But the numbers that you're seeing are majority, I'd say probably 90% Perth South. And it's from passerbys, even though they're logged in and everything, they're put in, but they call it in and we have to respond, right? So that's where that's coming from.
Okay, thank you. And your answer was probably a good segue into my real question. When I saw 162, I thought, oh,
yeah,
that's a lot of calls.
That was a lot of calls last year. Yeah.
I don't need an answer today because I don't expect you to have it on the top of your head, but at some point in time, maybe for your next report, could you break that down into St. Mary's, Perth South, and mutual aid?
Yeah, yes, I could do that. Yes.
I think it'd be nice to see, I think.
Would you like that for all calls or open air burning or?
I think of that 162.
Oh, okay.
On your annual report, I think that's a good time to let us know where you're spending a lot of your time.
Yes, I could do that. I could do that, sir.
All right. Any other comments or questions for the chief? Okay. So I'll seek recommendation that FD01-2025 January monthly report for emergency services be received for information. Does somebody want to move that motion? Councilor Pridham, second. Councilor Luna. Any further questions? All in favor? So moved. Now we'll move on to the fire protection grant. Chief, please.
Yes, worship to council. Yes, the fire protection grant, quite pleased with this. As you can see there, I'm requesting that council consider a bylaw for the authorization to execute an agreement. A little bit of background there, the fire protection grant was announced in the government's budget. And basically, there were some mandates, so you had to keep within. So, and it's all based on firefighter health and safety. And most, as you can see there, where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, it's cancer prevention. And that's the initiative. And this grant, it's going to be awarded over 3 years, $10 million a year. Every department can apply for it. Not every department maybe gets it. So I obviously with my request, I did meet the requirements and such. So I'll be applying again this year and the following year to make sure that I can get the proper equipment and such for the fellows. So I submitted that back in September, well in advance of the time. December 19th, we were informed that we're going to get $8,230.45, a very exact number, but that was based on my research and quotes to the equipment that I wish to get. So when you see like 25 sets of flash hoods and 25 sets of structural firefighting gloves, you have to remember like why this is there. I'm requesting this is because when the guys are wearing their flash hoods for one fire and they come back and they don't have say if they went to put it in the washing machine, which we do have the extractor, they don't have another flash hood. So if they got another call, they're without that. So having this extra flash hood, same with the gloves, they're wet, they're full of soot and contaminants. They can go in the washing machine. So having a second set, they'll be dry and ready to go for the next call. And this decontamination pack, which is fire departments are using, where immediately after a fire, after they come out of a house, we're going to wrap it up. It connects to the fire truck, and it's almost like a pressure washer, and we can wash the bunker gear off basically right at the scene and such, and that with this particular soap and that before they even get back into the trucks and such to if not, they'd be contaminating the interior of the fire apparatus to get back to washing it. So yeah, so I'm so happy that like I said that I applied for this, we got the grant, and I'll be able to go out with your blessing here. I'll be able to go out and purchase the set of the equipment.
Excellent. All right, any questions for the chief with regards to the fire protection grant? Pretty straightforward. All right. So with that, I will seek the recommendation that FD 02-2025 Fire Protection Grant Report be received, and that council consider bylaw 06-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement with His Majesty the King and the right of Ontario, as represented by the Ministry of the Solicitor General, for the fire protection grant. Somebody willing to move that motion? Councilor Pridham. Seconder, Councilor Lucas. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, we will move on to Human Resources. Ms. Nechtel and hopefully Ruby, please.
She was here a minute ago. She's having a little bit of a nap right now, so it's just me.
I am heartbroken, but please continue.
So tonight, when you look at the report, there are statistics on various things, recruitment, health and safety. Everything's pretty self-explanatory. I did put a note in the report that in the first full week of 2025, there were 3 job postings and 2 resignations. So instead of me going into great detail about the statistics, I just thought I would mention recruitment is a busy time. So there's lots going on with postings, onboarding. Recruitment, I'm sure everybody knows, is kind of a lengthy process. So sometimes it takes us longer to fill positions. And I also anticipate that you might have a question about resignations, because sometimes that does come up. So I wanted to speak a little bit about that, just to the point that resignations in any organization are just a part of the cycle. And we're quite fortunate at the town of St. Mary's that in many cases, staff members are leaving because they've gained valuable experience and they're moving on for promotion, which is wonderful to see. So I just wanted to highlight that in terms of the report, because you will see that there is movement, and other people this evening have talked about it in their departments as well in terms of staff changing. Having said that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have with respect to the report.
All right, any questions for the Human Resources report? Councilor Luna.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So Jennifer, just to expand on that resignations thing, are those numbers high for an organization of our number of staff?
No.
It is high to me, but.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So I would anticipate numbers like that, actually.
Do you know offhand our full staffing complement number approximately?
I do. So it's a bit difficult though, because it depends on the time of year, whether it's part-time, full-time, contract. So that's kind of where the difference is. And to that point, a lot of our positions are part-time and contract as well. So contracts end, so you'll see postings for that. In terms of full-time, taking out the part-time contract, you're looking at about 75. I'm not including volunteer firefighters and all the contract part-time casual.
Okay, any other questions? Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's not necessarily a question. I think, I look at it completely separate. I think that our hiring capabilities and getting young, energetic, growing staff is the reason why this happened, because other avenues have opened up for them. So I
Exactly.
think it says how good our hiring has been.
People are definitely getting good experience, which is a wonderful thing, and they're able to take advantage of promotions and opportunities, which is what should happen, and it's good for career development. Unfortunately, we don't have enough positions where we can we have the option for internal movement. So if people are looking to move into those roles, they are going to want to seek other avenues. And it's not just something that it's certainly not unique to the town of St. Mary's. It happens across organizations, government and otherwise.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments with regards to the HR report? Okay, seeing none. I have the recommendation that HR 01-2025, January monthly report, human resources be received for information. Can I have a mover? Councilor Craig Mile, second. Councilor Edney. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Since he's ready, I will say, move on to Public Works.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of highlights. We did receive a draft of the energy demand management plan, but in the review, just after right around Christmas there was a few things that were missing. So we've had to go back to them. There were some facilities that were excluded from the one 4 years ago. So we did flag that pretty significant amount of energy. So we did want to capture that to create that baseline. So that is delayed. We're supposed to get a draft by the end of January. So hopefully I'm going to email tomorrow. Cemetery master plan RFP closed. We have a couple submissions that we're evaluating. Hopefully awarded February 11th. I don't know if we'll have that. Sorry, hopefully award in February. I don't know if we'll have that for the 11th, but maybe the second meeting. We're successful in that Enbridge climate action offer. So I think we used the MOC. Thomas submitted the MOC HVAC units, so that was good. That was $10,000. The treatment plant is going well. Things are coming together. We're looking at processes coming online late winter, early spring, but they're coming, so that's our grit removal, odor control. But things are looking good down there. We've been slowly, I guess we've had a few accidents, so we're slowly working through the replacements of the downtown traffic lights. I've been asked about that. Those are special posts, so they have an inner core reinforcement. So the lead time on those posts are like 12 to 16 weeks. I've also been asked, why don't we keep one in stock? They're pretty expensive to keep around. It's probably a fluke. You know, I've been in here almost 10 years at this, and this is, I guess, this is my second one. So I've only really lost 2 in 10 years. So they're not really worth, yeah. So they're not really worth something you want to keep in stock. But they are a special order. There is special strength reinforcements in the center, so it is on order. We're working as fast as we can. The 911 mapping is ongoing. Jeremy's still working through that. It's a pretty big project for him. And then we've got a couple of variances. The radar signs are out of commission right now. We need to replace at least one LED board. So they're back in the shop. They'll reappear in the spring. We've ordered the parts. And the Vector truck, we had to get a pump rebuilt back in December, and then we're looking at a wireless upgrade for it. So yeah, other than that, I'll take any questions or.
Any questions for Mr. Kelly? Councilor Bruno?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. These traffic light posts, who pays for them? Is the person that hits them charged for them?
Yeah, so through your worship, basically on this one, I gotta give a shout out. I don't know who the resident was, but apparently a resident observed it and the post remained up and the truck like sheared out half of the post so that the inner core was visible. And I think the resident chased them down through a snowstorm to get the plate number for us. So what happens is it goes through insurance, but insurance will only cover based on the remaining life of the asset. So say if the asset was halfway through its life cycle, they're only going to pay 50% of the asset. So I think we recovered up to, I'd have to get you an exact number, but I want to say it was 70-80% on the last one. So those poles still have quite a bit of, they weren't replaced in 2016. They still have quite a bit of life expectancy in them, but it is a depreciated value that we come to an agreement. Well, Andre works with the insured, I think, and they come to an agreement. I don't know if Andre's still there, but hopefully I got that right. But we don't pay for it all. We'll pay for a portion of it, but we are getting a refreshed asset. I get that right, Andre? Okay, good.
Thumbs up, Mr. Red there. All right, any other questions or comments, Mr. Kelly here? Councilor Bruno?
Thank you, to your worship. I see the garbage cans were repainted. That's awesome. But a question about the garbage cans, because you're taking them away from the trails and that sort of thing and to repaint them, are they replaced or are they just held back until the spring?
Through worship. So in the winter, we go to a reduced number of garbage receptacles and then we put them all back out in the spring. I won't beat around the bush. We have constant, people want more and more garbage receptacles. It just becomes a service issue. So we're spending probably about, I'm going to say we're probably spending about, so probably about 20 hours a week emptying garbage cans. So the more we add, obviously that just snowballs down. We do put them in key areas. So yes, they are going back out. They haven't been removed, but they'll go back out. I think it's Victoria Day weekend to Thanksgiving is kind of our service window for the garbage cans.
Yeah, I guess that you've heard the same thing as I have. There's not a lot of garbage cans out there. And in the winter time, people are still walking their dogs and still looking to put, the bits in the garbage. And sometimes they are not there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm not sure if there's anything that can happen with that, but if there were, I guess, some that were always left available, then people would have an expectation that that's where they would go.
Yeah, we do have quite a few that are still out, that remain out. The downtown ones remain out. There are key locations that remain out. Part of it is, can we access it to change the garbage, with the winter, obviously. Yeah. There is comments inside the rec master plan about a service level for trails and amenities and things like that. So that is kind of on the radar for something down the road that we have to establish. But yeah, not being around the bush, I guess you've had the comments too. It's always.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Kelly? All right, well, seeing none, I've got the recommendation that PW 03-2025, January monthly report of Public Works be received for information. Someone willing to move that motion? Councilor Luna, second. Councilor Craigmile. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carries. All right, so we will move on to the Source Protection Plan pre-consultation, section 34 updates, and I believe that is Mr. Blake up on the screen.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
Perfect. So this report is provided as a follow-up to a council delegation from January 14th. The current source protection plan was approved and came into force in 2015. Leading up to that approval, the town was involved in a lot of consultation activities that did help frame the policies that eventually formed the source protection plan. In 2021, the MECP released updated technical rules that required changes and/or updates to the source protection plan. And since that time, the Source Protection Committee has undertaken a comprehensive review to ensure the source protection plan is in compliance with the new Director Technical Rules. Well, most of the policies have been amended in some form or another, whether it be grammatical updates or terminology. The key updates to St. Mary's related to the application of road salt, fuel, salt storage, snow storage, and pesticides and fertilizer storage. The updates can and will have an impact to both the town as well as other property owners within the community. And many of these impacts, should they eventually be approved, would be navigated between affected property owners and the risk management official for the town. And so what that means is that basically the risk management official would negotiate basically a risk management plan with the property owner to mitigate those risks. The report to council does make efforts to provide a high-level summary of the changes to the source protection plan and the potential impacts to the property owners. The Source Protection Committee is seeking an endorsement from council on the proposed changes to enable updates to the plan to move to the next stage of consultation under the Clean Water Act requirements. And I'll take any questions.
Okay, any questions or comments for Mr. Blake here? Councilor Pridham.
Thank you, Your Worship. The pesticides and fertilizer storage, I know that it doesn't necessarily affect the town, municipality, but it affects business owners. And so is there a pre-consult with them, or is that something that we pass and then the risk management people go out and talk to them about the fact that this is new and you have to now move your fertilizers and things that you sell from your location?
Through your worship to Councillor Pridham. So you are correct. It is likely going to impact property owners unrelated to the town properties that we own. And one of the changes within the source protection plan is actually the inclusion of retail locations. So when we talk about fertilizer and pesticide storage and impacts under the policies, it would look to include those properties that to date have not been affected by the source protection plan. And basically it's how they store their materials, what's their spill management plan, do they have a spill management plan, and basically if something does spill, how do they mitigate it from entering the subsurface and potentially impacting the groundwater. So that's something, the endorsement from the town is just one piece of a consultation program. So my understanding is that with an endorsement from the town, this process would then move to further public engagement, where these policies would basically property owners would have a chance to have that pre-consultation piece as well. And those properties that may not have been affected in the past would be flagged for that consultation and then be able to navigate that with the risk management officials.
That's true.
Thank you. I'm just asking the question. I do think it's really super important that we protect our source water, our groundwater. And it's nice to know that there'll be some sort of dialogue and understanding and discussion on how some of these businesses will be impacted and how that's going to affect them and the outcome that they will agree to. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, I'll move on to the recommendation. The recommendation is that report PW 05-2025 Source Protection Plan pre-consultation, section 34 updates be received, and the council consider correspondence regarding notice of pre-consultation, proposed updates to the Thames Sydenham Source Protection Plan, and that pursuant to section 34(3) of the Clean Water Act 2006, the council for the town of St. Mary's endorses the proposed updates to the Thames Sydenham Source Protection Plan. Do I have anybody willing to move that motion? Councilor Pridham, second. Councilor Craig Mile. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Blake. Okay, I have nothing under emergent or unfinished business. However, under notices of motion, Councilor Craig Mile, I will now ask that you please read out your notice of motion, and we will consider it at a later date.
Yeah, I apologize for not getting it done a little earlier than could have been in the package, but we had a great segue to my motion there from Mr. Moran, if you remember some of the things he was saying a little earlier. Anyways, here's my notice of motion. That council requests the library board to conduct a core service review to be presented to council by July 1st, 2025, outlining the minimum service required to be provided as legislated by the Public Libraries Act, including the current cost to provide the minimum legislated services, and outlining current services and service levels that are beyond the minimum service required under the Public Libraries Act, including the current cost to provide these services.
Excellent. It is my understanding that motion is to be included in the next meeting. Madam Clerk, is that correct? For consideration. We do nothing with that now. But thank you, Councilor Kirkmall, much appreciated. And I'll now move on to bylaws. So we have the recommendation that bylaws 05-2025 and 06-2025 be read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed by council and signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. I believe Mr. Kittler was there. Commentary you want to offer under this segment?
No, just to reiterate what Ms. McCartney previously said, that under 11.2, your bylaw will be updated, the schedule of the budget bylaw to eliminate project number 65. And then at some point in the future, when staff report back from the ad hoc committee's work, at that point in time, council may or may not want to consider adding and amending the capital budget to add a new capital project. Or the same capital project.
Excellent. Much appreciated. Everybody understands? Good. All right. Can I have a mover for that motion? Councilor Lucas, second. Councilor Craig Mile. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so upcoming meetings, we got February 11th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Regular council chambers. February 18th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Strategic Priorities Committee, council chambers. February 25th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at regular council chambers. Hope to see you there. Maybe we won't. So now I'll ask, yeah, sure.
To the CAO, and regarding this ad hoc committee, who's taking the lead on that and organizing that?
Okay, so through the deputy mayor, Miss Ishi will be taking the lead on it. So again, she's been in contact with me tonight. She plans tonight even to reach out to the people that she knows, to the executive members of both associations, to ask them who they want to put forward for the meetings. And once she has those confirmed, I know she wants to work fairly quickly to get a first meeting organized, essentially for a brainstorming session, so that council is prepared to paint lines if there's no resolution. However, whatever good ideas are there.
Alrighty, would we like a break before our closed session today?
Yes, I would like.
Okay, we'll break for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
I like the psychedelic.
We're back from our break and we will depart quite quickly again, because next we have closed session and we have the recommendation that council move into a session that's closed to the public at 8:05 p.m. as authorized under the Municipal Act, Section 239, 2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Somebody will move that motion? Councilor Luna, Councilor Lucas, all in favor? So moved. Goodbye.